City of Apache Junction Parks and Recreation Commission to order at 6 p.m. May we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Commissioner Luciana Buzin,
Present.
Commissioner Frank Schoenbeck,
Here.
Chairman Wayne Standage,
Here?
Vice Chairman Jesse Gage.
Here.
Commissioner Walker Waldy is not here presently. Commissioner Judy Boyd, and Commissioner Heather Moeller.
Here
have
we
a
go.
quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, folks. Now, our next item is acceptance of tonight's agenda.
And accept the agenda.
Okay, let me, I call for a motion. Luciano beat me to the punch.
Eager.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead, Jesse.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Jesse. Now, we need a roll call vote for acceptance of the motion, please.
Commissioner Heather Moeller,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciana Buzin,
Yes.
Commissioner Frank Schoenbeck,
Yes.
Chairman Wayne Standage,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Jesse Gage,
Yes.
and Commissioner Judy Boyd.
Yes.
It passes
It passes, okay.
6 with nobody abstaining.
Now, we have the acceptance of the minutes for the meeting of October 2nd, 2019. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of that date, please?
Honorable Chairman, I so move.
Okay, we have a motion from Frank. Do I have a second?
Second.
Luciano seconds. May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Judy Boyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Heather Moeller,
Yes.
Commissioner Luciana Buzin,
Yes.
Commissioner Frank Schoenbeck,
Yes.
Chairman Wayne Standage,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Jesse Gage.
Yes.
It passes 6 and nobody abstaining.
All right.
Okay.
We'll recognize Ms.
Here we have
Yeah.
the late person. Just tell us you had a flat, okay?
And you didn't know where to go with it.
There's more crying babies than flat tires.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We are down now to start the Parks and Recreation Director's Report, and I turn this over to Liz.
When Chairman Standage, I'd like to recognize Walker Waldy is present at the meeting.
Thank you.
Made it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just a few updates, our facilities update, just a couple of things, few things that I wanted to bring to your attention. We don't have it on our regular agenda, but I just wanted to share with you. So the dog park, we haven't gotten our first information yet. They've been data gathering. We did do our survey and all that kind of stuff has been done. But I expect by the end of the year that we'll have our first conceptual look again with the new plans. We had discussed, and all of your comments from the previous meeting were shared with J2. And so I just wanted to let you know that we expect to get that stuff back after about the first 60 days as some of that drainage stuff was being looked at. And we'll be bringing that to a future meeting. So that's kind of where we're at on that. We have also, though, been working with our corporate partnerships coordinator, Fox Young, and our grants coordinator, identifying our process for doing our corporate partnership campaign, as well as our the grants that we feel are viable, and then as well as other donor types of programs. And so working on just getting those materials together, really until we get to about 60% drawing designs. That's generally about the best time once we have true budget numbers that we'll be able to submit for some of our grants, and that will give us a good little time frame. Additionally, our development fee fund has been growing pretty significantly. We have had a lot of development and growth in the community, both from business end to houses. So we've had a really good influx of some money coming into that that is pretty much earmarked for the dog park at this point.
Liz, as far as when that money comes in, like, I know there's a development going in on the corner of Old West Highway out near Goldfield. Do we get that money when that project is completed? Do we get that money in the process
So
of that?
when the permits are pulled, that's when they submit their, they pull the permits, and then shortly after that, I think some of that money comes in as part of their fee. So we get it pretty, it's not when it's all completely, all finished. It's somewhere there in that middle of that process.
Oh, thank you. I have no idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And then there's actually a location, in fact, I will make myself a note as it relates to the dog park to kind of share with you guys where we're at in development fees, and also where you can look at online the fiscal year, what was in the kind of bank at the time of reporting, and then you can kind of look to see each time. But it is on public record, and it is part of our website. So we'll add that to a future item.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to share with you is, many of you know we had the oops, what happened to all my, oh, they're there. We had our Make a Difference Day event on October 26th. Super amazing turnout. So the Community Development Corporation here in Apache Junction are the main sponsors of Make a Difference Day for Apache Junction. They supported a website that put out a place where people could actually put projects online. So whether it was a resident or a group that needed work done, you could put your projects on their site, and then they would match up organizations that were looking for Make a Difference Day projects. And so they ended up having a little bit over 130, I don't know the actual number, but I know it was somewhere between 130, 140 people that came out on that day in the morning and contributed to various projects. So, oops, I skipped it. There it is. Oh, I don't want that. On their website here, you can check out any of the photos if you want to take a look. We had a great, huge picture of our group. Well, that's probably an okay one. Let's see. I don't think that might not capture everybody, but everybody that was there in time for the photo. And so we had a big group from Team Rubicon came. They're people that are all over the country, but mostly members of their local group. And then our Arizona Sustainability Alliance, who contributed the trees that are in the median, and then they also brought out a bunch of volunteers. And then everybody else was various church groups, as well as just members of the community that came out to help out in the projects. And so just as a reminder, we did the Apache Trail median. They did all the tree planting.
That's going west from the focal point?
So this picture is, it's going west from, that intersection there at the focal point. And then this picture, though, is, I don't think that's what this is. Let me look. This one is actually on the east end of town, I believe. Let me see. Is it not?
The barber,
No.
I see the barber pole in that corner.
Is the barber pole
pole.
part of,
So that would be up by,
oh, yeah, this is
That's
going
right
west.
by
Yep.
That minute lube, right?
Yeah, yep. So this group, they had a pretty tough job because we weren't, because of all the rain and all the issues that we were having, we got behind on getting a few of the things ready. And so they had to dig by hand all of their holes. The other side, over here on the east end of town, or the west end of town, they at least had a lot of the holes pre-dug and pre-augured, and so they had a little bit of a different time. So the Apache Trail median received a ton of plants and trees. We just did the 2 sections. The goal is that we will be doing one section at least each year, and being able to kind of grow that project. So we learned a lot this year. Certainly got a lot of all the plants and trees ended up being donated. So we were able to raise enough money through the Community Development Corporation for all the plants and trees. But the riprap, the granite that's going to come later to kind of help protect from erosion and all that, that'll definitely still be stuff from the city. We've gotten a great deal from Treasure Chest and from other organizations. We partnered with Pinal County and got a lot of the riprap. So a lot of things were done through donations, but it did require a lot of city time. And so I think it's really important for people to know that while we're able to do a lot of things with donations. It's tough, and so there's still a lot of city investment in it, but it's an important investment that our community committed to. Think Desert was the other part of it. Again, all the plants were donated for that, and then we had all of our youth, mostly youth church groups or groups that came out that had family members because we didn't want them working out in the median. So they added a lot of the plants to our wild seed growth here. They finished helping with our mural, so it's pretty much I think it's pretty much done in that little section, but they contributed to all the butterflies, they added flowers to the plants there, so a lot of the groups contributed to that. And then they also lined the path, I don't know if you guys all recall, but north of Flatiron Park, just north of the wash, there's a little path that we bladed. We got permission from the landowner to blade a path basically from Flatiron over to Plaza Drive, where meeting up with Horizon Health and Sorrel Family Fitness, as well as the mobile home parks that are over on that side of town, so that people could cut across quickly to Flatiron. When those that want to walk and like enjoying that little hike each day. And so that is a little area that they helped to line and get it ready. So a lot of great things for Make a Difference Day. We were really proud of that. Just as an FYI, those are two major things that Parks and Rec was involved in, but there were also several residents, elderly or people who had disabilities that weren't able to do things in their yard, and they did some major cleanup stuff. So, like here's a before picture of one of the sites. Where's the after? It was really good. I don't know, in here. But all of these areas right here just were full of weeds, and when they were done, they were all nice and cleaned up and able to kind of get to all of their stuff. So giving those people a good, healthy start to their yard, and all volunteers in that group. A lot of city staff came out and volunteered that day, so awesome time. That will be something that will be happening each year, and so just definitely encourage you that if you know of organizations that want to get involved on that day, it's most likely always going to be on the official national day, which is October 26th, but it could happen anytime in October. We struggle a little bit because that's usually also Halloween Carnival, so we were very busy that day, and we definitely probably bit off a little more than we could chew doing Think Desert and then both sides of the trail, so spreading a little bit of our staff out a little thin, but awesome day. Really, really proud of the work that was done.
So
Still working on that, though.
excuse me, it's on
Yes.
October 26th, regardless of the day of the week?
I'm sorry. It's whatever that last Saturday is what I
Last
should have
Saturday
said.
in
Yes,
October?
the last Saturday of October.
Thank you.
But the Community Development Corporation is kicking that around of, looking to see if that's the best day possible. It is a very good day for planting because it is towards the end of the hot time and we're getting things in where it's a little bit cooler. It was still pretty hot for the next few days, and even though we did plan in a little bit of watering, some things really went into shock. So they got a little bit more tender loving care. We did take out a couple of things and replace them, but I mean, we actually did a pretty good job for about 140 plants and about 28 trees. We only lost 2 major ones that are not still doing well, and then all of this rain that we've had has been awesome for them. So that's really the goal. As we look at future areas of Apache Trail, we are going to be looking at some above ground watering systems that are temporary. So these are native plants. We want them to suffer a little. That's how they actually, adjust to their environment and all of that. But it's very difficult watering the plants on the trail. It's a hard area to be able to get to, unlike Royal Palm, where it's a much calmer road. So we found a lot of wonderful lessons in this project that will help us for next year, I think. But definitely exploring some ideas to make it a little bit more, little less difficult next year. So can look forward to more information on that. Also wanted just to mention that we did put in our new play feature at Prospector Park. So it's a really cool, neat thing. I'm probably not going to be able to get it as quick as I'd like. Oh, never mind, it's not going to let me be here. But a neat new climbing structure that's there. So we'd already put in one that was a merry-go-round plus a climbing structure that has been really popular. And then this one is a geometric dome climbing one that We did get some comments, though, of, we miss there being some things for really small-aged children. We do have room, and we do have a little money left over that we are going to be bringing back. So we had taken out a lot of the spring animals because they were in a location that was unsafe where the new structure was going. But we do have more space. So we'll be adding in some smaller pieces that are for younger kids. But keeping in mind also that each playground, we are trying to attract a variety of people to be able to come, and definitely having things that are movement, get kids doing things that are a little bit different, climbing, getting around, moving, getting into different places, and then things that are a little bit risky and make kids feel like they're trying new things. So so that's phase 3 of Prospector Park, and like I said, there'll probably be a couple more little smaller features that are for younger kids. And then next year, the plan is that phase 2, the playground over by those other smaller ramadas, those are going to get a big structure that'll come back in. So we'll be taking out the big structure that's there now and replacing it with something else. We have a couple of different matching grant opportunities that are, I won't say they're for sures, but they're like a 95% kind of thing, so that we can get something that is really much bigger and be able to budget for about half of what it would cost, and the rest of it will be funded through a manufacturing grant. So we'll share more about that once we know a little bit more, but that'll kind of complete both of those playgrounds getting updated. So definitely go out, check it out. It's pretty cool looking. The last thing I just wanted to mention to all of you, again, maybe not as exciting as I think it is, but we did budget for and put in a shade structure for our mobile stage. So I know we've talked about in past meetings that, the elements, having it out there, that the wrap that we have on it, we want to protect that as long as we can, and sitting out in the sun is never a good thing for anything that we have. And so we were able to budget, and we finished the install on a huge shade structure that is really just for the mobile stage. It will also keep some of the elements and some of the working stuff, under some shade, and not be so hard on some of the mechanisms of the stage. The tires, they could just basically be rotting out in the sun while it's just sitting, and has sides. It's really beautiful. We're really excited about it. So it'll stay there whenever it's not being utilized at an event. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. I know that was a question a couple of years ago. That concludes the facilities update part. Would you like me to go on to the program update item?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So lots of programs and activities. I'm not going to go over all of them. I just wanted to highlight a couple of events that are coming up. This weekend is our holiday event, light parade and tree lighting ceremony. So at Flatiron Park, we'll have Santa, as well as our snow, and then all of the different game and vendor booths. A lot of food trucks will be out for that part of the event. 3 o'clock to 6 p.m. We'll be at the park. The roads will not be shut down, except for there'll be some traffic control there as people kind of park and then come across to the event. Our tree lighting ceremony will be at 6:30 p.m. and the mayor and probably a kid or two in the crowd will do the official tree lighting. The tree is up right now, and if you saw it lit on Monday, you weren't supposed to. We tried not to turn the lights on until the actual tree lighting, but we caught that. The timing system on them had to get readjusted. So it looks beautiful, and we're very excited about it, but if you go by and you see that the lights are off, it's because we don't turn them on until the official tree lighting. After that, so the Apache Junction band will be there, and they'll be playing some Christmas music as well as other music while we wait for the holiday light parade to happen. The light parade starts at 7 p.m. and it is, it's probably about the same size as in other years. We are watching the weather cautiously. It doesn't look, so every day it looks a little different. So it's supposed to rain a lot tonight through tomorrow and clear up on Friday, but by Saturday evening it's supposed to be rainy again. We don't really know what that really looks like. Just want to let you know, we've had lots of years where the holiday event has had some rain. So sprinkling, mild drizzling. We had one year where we had hail during the event itself, and then it cleared up for the parade. So everything kind of just goes on as planned until it's unsafe to do so anymore. So if you hear people asking about it, we are fully planning on having the event. It's technically a rain or shine event unless it is too safe to be out there because of lightning or something of that nature. And those decisions would just be made, unfortunately, on the day of the event. So pray for good weather that keeps us out there. I think it'll be fine. The other thing I wanted just to mention, so we also have a movie in the park the following Saturday, and then we have a little bit of a lag time there for a couple of weeks where we'll have our normal multi-gen center fitness classes, we'll have our fall break programs going on, but take a little bit of a break on everything else until after the holidays. And then the second weekend in January, it's pretty much every weekend there's something going on at one of our parks or one of our facilities that's major. So as you all know, major event season with Lost Dutchman Days and Lost Dutchman Marathon. Our Superstition Blues and Brews Festival will be back for the 3rd year. That one is almost maxed out, so it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. So we're very excited about all of that. And then you will all be receiving a save the date for the Apache Trail chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. They have submitted for a historic marker for the Apache Trail to be placed in Apache Junction. And we are locating it on the far north east corner of Flatiron, so I think Desert, where the little botanical walk is, right at the edge on North Apache Trail, is where the marker will be. It will be in that little walkway so that people can they're not on the road or anything like that. They're out there in the trail. And they have purchased a really nice, super nice plaque that'll be there. And then it'll be recognized on the National Registry where they have historic markers all over. But it's part of North Apache Trail, so we felt that that was fitting. It was someplace where people could get to pretty easily. And then they will be having a little dedication ceremony on Wednesday, February 19th I believe it's at 1:00 p.m. and they'll have a short little presentations. They'd like to invite all of you that are able to come, knowing that it's in the middle of the day. So many of you might work, but if you can be there, we'd love to have you there. They'll be reaching out to council as well as other people from the county to share kind of the historical relevance of the Apache Trail and talk a little bit about that. And then they'll have some refreshments at the end. So just a small gathering, but wanted to let you guys know you'll be getting a save the date through email here very shortly. And then that pretty much concludes, unless there's questions about programs. And yes, it does say about discussion. So any program questions?
What was that organization you just said that was going to be donating that plaque?
The Apache Trail chapter so that's the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Or sometimes called DAR.
Yes, I did see that. Any other questions in general?
Okay, sounds like you have your
No,
plate
I think
full.
you've covered
You
everything.
do.
Any questions, guys?
No.
Down the line?
Good job.
Okay, we go then to our next item, which is old business.
This is really old business.
Really
The
old.
BLM update, but I've already shared with you a while back ago that we at least so for a very long period, we were renewing our leases, our recreation and public purpose lease, so there are only certain things we can do there. We cannot use those spaces for commercial purposes. And all of our expiring leases had been renewed, so Prospector Park, the rodeo grounds, and the multi-use trail system, Sheep Drive Trail. All of that was renewed by the BLM, and we submitted immediately after that our request to go to patent on Prospector Park under the Recreation and Public Purpose Program. It's pretty much fully developed. There's certainly plans for a dog park in the future. There's other things, but all of it is significantly developed enough that we can apply for patent. And all that patent does under the Rec and Public Purpose patent, where we get it free of charge, is all it does is make it so that we don't have to keep renewing our leases anymore. It's in our name. They could still take it back from us if we didn't use it properly. So if we suddenly started I don't know what. We are able to rent facilities. We're able to do all the things we're doing on it. But if we decided that it was now a major concert venue, or we were doing major things that are beyond just recreational for our community and events for our community, they could revert back and take it away from us, which is very highly unlikely. The types of things we have out there are really for the right purpose. So we submitted our letter for that quite a while ago, and we just received notice that we will have our first meeting with them. So our city manager, Bryant Powell, and myself will be meeting with their office to talk about any steps. They don't believe there's a lot of steps in Prospector Park because we're not looking at purchasing it or doing anything, so they think that'll be a fairly easy process. The rodeo grounds, we asked to look into patent as well as purchase, so that way the council would have the opportunity to look at both options. They have expressed, and it's been part of our work plan for a couple of years now, to be looking into whether we could purchase the rodeo grounds. Well, actually, in the beginning, it was to figure out if we could just have events and if there was some way that BLM would allow that. But the only way that that is possible on that land is if we purchase it from BLM for fair market value. And so and fair market value, so supposedly it's not supposed to be what it would cost if somebody was going to build a house or other items there. It's federal public land, and so nobody could purchase it for that. So if they were purchasing it for that reason, that would be different. We have already done all of the investment in the property with all the utilities and all the amenities that are already there. So it would really be bare land price, and we're hopeful, and what we were told is that it's not the price that it would cost, for example, if I was building a home out in that area and those wonderful views and all of that. So we have our meeting next week. We will learn a little bit more about that one. That one takes a little bit more time. There's an appraisal process, and BLM, they hire all that, but the city has to pay for that. And so we'll learn a little bit more about that. We did put into our budget some money, so that way, if that came about, and once we learn how much it is, we would be prepared and ready. So that was approved within the budget by council. And then when we learn more, we'll certainly be sharing more with you all. It's not a done deal. When we find out how much it costs, it's probably have a lot to do with whether or not we'll be able to ever purchase it. There are also other needs in the city of purchasing property for various things, for economic growth in the downtown, parking near our Flatiron Park. So there's a lot of other needs that the council will have to determine if this is really something that they want to pursue. And I think the main reason that we were asked to continue to look into it is because of the idea that we would be able to do more commercial type activities there. Concerts, other things that actually brought in money and helped to have revenues that would help to sustain some of the other parks. And so that was kind of the main purpose for that council has directed us on.
About how many acres is the rodeo ground?
So the rodeo grounds itself is only 20 acres, but the area that we originally requested is about 80 because we included the parking that is outside of the main gated area. However, in our last meeting where they gave us our renewal leases, they determined that the parking is actually part of the Prospector Park lease, because currently right now it's all part of the Prospector Park lease, all the area outside of the fence. And that in that plan of development, it actually called for parking. So as long as we are not selling parking spaces, we don't have to include it. In addition, if we did decide to charge people for parking, as long as that money was earmarked to go back into Prospector Park's facility maintenance and operation or new amenities, we would be allowed to charge for parking for major events once we got to that stage.
So we'd buy the rodeo grounds, but the adjacent parking would be part of the old lease.
Correct. The Prospector Park lease. Yep.
Park,
Yep. And I think once we know a little bit more, we'll know whether or not it's even a viable decision. So we could buy it, and it could be that it's when will we invest to be able to make it a venue for concerts? It's not ready now, and there's a lot of things would have to be done to it differently. And so those are all things that I think our commission will be looking at, as well as the city council, and weighing the pros and cons of all of that. But the first step is to know whether we can do it, how much it costs, what is that kind of an investment, so that way we can make some smart decisions about it.
Liz, do we know what the seating is in the,
I really wish I could tell you with certainty, but I don't know. I can certainly find that out.
because I'm thinking for the concert.
I don't know why 200 is in my mind. I'm pretty sure that's totally wrong.
How much?
It might be like 2,000. I don't know, actually. I'm just going to stop talking.
No,
It's definitely more than 200. I'm
yeah.
not even going to try. I know we have it listed somewhere because it actually has it's numbered seating and everything, so we certainly I could find that information out.
Thank you.
Because you're right. Those are the types of things that people need to think about. How many people could actually view the concert? What other amenities do we have to bring in? It's dirt. Is that really a viable concert venue? Westworld and a lot of those started as just dirt areas that people came into. So there's
Country Thunder.
yeah, and one right. So lots of things. We could also be, maybe it's not concerts. It might be more rodeos and more things that could bring in a little bit more revenue, so that way help support that facility as well as Prospector Park.
Well,
Yes.
there's things like
Um,
Country Thunder and
Yeah.
those kind of things,
Yeah.
those kind of venues.
Possibly.
That wouldn't be possible yet unless we purchased it.
Correct.
Right.
That's what. Yep.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
okay. The other thing I was wondering, the map I have at home has the possibility of a second arena just on the west side. Now, would that still be allowed once we get the lease done?
So.
Without purchase, I'm not going into the patent.
Yeah, as long as it's just for the recreational activities, I think that's the challenge. How do we ever increase all of those amenities? For the type of events that are out there, you need to invest in the property. And, we only have 3 rodeos right now that come to our facility. So even investing in adding another arena, right now we're looking at our announcing booth. That has to be, it's old, it's been there for 20 years, it's wood.
Now, our cowboy mounted shooting, have they come out again this year?
They come out every year. Yep, they're back
Okay.
already.
And we also have the Future Farmers of America there? Isn't there
Our
still?
4-H and
4-H
Gymkhana used to, so we have a few groups like that, but those are small.
I know that's small, but
It's not a lot of revenue that comes in to be able to make new amenities, and there's not enough of it where we are turning people away. So I think it really depends on, what the need is. So if it's really only a need for a practice arena for 2 or 3 events a year, it probably, the way that it is now is probably sufficient.
Okay.
So those are things I think we just assess as we go. If we were to purchase it, there's nothing that says we can't add that to the other. We'd have to
Right.
change our plan of development for Prospector Park. Currently, right now, even though they approved that master plan,
Yeah.
it was not part of the rodeo grounds lease. So even though they approved the rodeo grounds master plan, 10 years,
Okay.
however long ago it was done, it's actually not, it's not part of the plan of development. And so that was what was holding up all of our leases, was that we had a plan that covered 2 separate leases that were completely 2 separate parks. The 20 acres is all that there is with the rodeo grounds. And so that entire master plan has to be incorporated into, if that's what is determined to be needed, it needs to be incorporated into the Prospector Park lease.
Is that fence on the west side of the park, of the rodeo stadium? There's like a 10-foot chain link.
Yeah,
about
that's not for a
100 feet
practice. No, it's probably for whatever other purposes out there,
Okay,
because it just ends. I mean, it's not,
yeah.
and
that's-
it's not a fully enclosed other
yeah,
section.
it's that high fence.
Yep.
That's just a little bit away from the actual arena. Just trying to get it straight in my mind.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
Okay. So more information later.
Okay. We've completed old business. BLM update. Now we're down to new business, grant program priorities and prioritization.
Hopefully I didn't get us. 1 second. Did I somehow get out of it? I did. There we go. Okay, so real quickly, so the active transportation plan was approved by the city council last January, and you guys were all involved with that.
Yeah.
That site is still active, and if you ever want to go back and look to refer to for other future conversations we have, ajcity.net/active is what I think is the easiest way to get there. You can also go through the Development Services Department, and you can find it pretty easily. You can click on it on here to see the whole plan. It does take a little while to load. I will tell you it's 252 pages and has many maps and pictures. If you would like a copy for yourself, you can let Mary know today after the meeting, and we will be happy to print off a copy for you, but it's available online, and it is quite lengthy. It doesn't come in real clear here, but want to just kind of show. So, you know, we just adopted this in January, and at the back of it, there's a very extensive implementation plan for roads and sidewalks. So because roads are already in our CIP and they're already identified as when those are going to get funded each year through HERF, they were able to incorporate all of the sidewalks as well as other multi-purpose paths that are adjacent to a road. They incorporated those into our capital improvement plan. And so they're already kind of planned out for the next, what's going to happen in the next 0 to 5 years, the next 5 to 10 years, and then anything beyond 10 years, what would happen next. What it doesn't have is an implementation plan for the trails and other, you know, pedestrian, biking, and equestrian pathways. We have on here where they're at and where they would be, but I think that's going to be one of our tasks over the next couple of years. When we do our Parks and Rec master plan, that'll be a great time for us to be able to very specifically do our implementation plan. But in the meantime, I just wanted to start a conversation with all of you about our priorities for trails and what you guys are thinking. We have a lot of different grant opportunities that are opening up now. The Land, Water, and Conservation Fund was brought back through Congress. It was additionally funded for the first time in many, many years. So our City Hall complex park, where the playground is in front of the MGC, the shuffleboard courts, all of that was funded through LWCF. And I think there's a couple of other areas. We said the tennis courts at Prospector Park, right? So the tennis courts, the original tennis courts at Prospector Park were funded by that funding source. They have to be there in perpetuity. It's okay if you take them down and rebuild them, but there always has to be tennis courts at that park. The shuffleboard courts, regardless of whether people care about shuffleboard or not, have to stay there. People do. We have a lot of groups that use it and take care of it for us. But we have an opportunity to be submitting for more of that money. Game and Fish and Arizona State Parks manage several different grant programs, and we just don't want to be left out. Larry Kirch, our Development Services Director, very aggressive we spent all the time and the money on this plan, and we need to fund some of it. So we want to make sure that we take care of it. So we want to just at least, I don't want to just on my own say what I think, you know, whenever a grant comes up, oh yeah, let's just do this section. This is something that I think is important for you guys to discuss and have a little bit of weighing in. Tonight is really just an initial discussion. I want to share with you a few of the different areas that are probably the most likely funded types of sections, and then tell you the drawbacks and the positives of each of them, and answer any of your questions, hear any other concerns or positives that you have of them. And then we'll kind of continue this discussion as we go, but this would help us at least with if we have some that are coming up immediately that we want to start getting an idea for, we at least have had a little bit of opportunity to kind of kick it around and figure out what we want to do.
Liz, can you swap out like a shuffleboard court for a bocce ball court? Or
You
not?
would have to go back and request that, so I'm not sure how the process, because I've been there so long, I don't know what the process was to determine what should go there. So a lot of it depends on that. Also, we would do that if it wasn't being utilized or if it was a better use for it. So, I think the tennis courts are a good example. There's one tennis court that has pickleball courts on it now, but the other two are tennis courts. And so looking to see, they actually just came out, they do an audit about every 5 years to make sure you're fulfilling what you should do. And we got a notice saying we've fulfilled that they're all still in compliance. We do have to add some signage that is missing on some of them, but so I don't know. We'll have to look and see how that works out. So in our, we have a technical advisory committee in the city that is made up of our economic development folks, our development services department people, city engineer, public works department, our parks division, because a lot of it has to do with landscaping, and so Nick was heavily involved in a lot of the decisions in that group. There's probably certainly some people from management services, but they kind of took a stab at just talking about how trails affect the community and how it affects the mission. And so in that meeting, they talked about 3 main areas, and one was, obviously, we have a master plan for the multi-use trail system. So the green here in the map, that entire thing is Sheep Drive Trail, our multi-use trail system. The main trail goes along the power line corridor, and then there's a lot of little offshoots, spaghetti trails that just have developed over time. In addition, so that main line there in the middle is what Sheep Drive Trail is. All the green is not the area. The green represents our Bureau of Land Management, our lease, and what we have in that lease. We have a multi-million-dollar master plan that was done 22 years ago. And so we have some information on what can be done. It certainly can be updated when we do our Parks and Rec master plan. A lot of it is calling for a lot of the same things that are in the active transportation plan. But I think some of the priorities in that one that a lot of the equestrian community mentioned when we went and did our meetings was trailheads at certain areas are important, that technically the trails exist, and so them being, completely changed or making them in a different surface is not necessarily something that they feel like is a number 1 priority. But walkers might, or hikers might think that there's some other needs. Certainly trailheads with some restrooms and other amenities are a big need. And a lot of those can be costly, but those are some good areas that you can start with. Additionally, the connection here from the edge of ours to Usury. So Usury is over here up on the farther north end, and it's a very easy connection to get between those 2 areas, but focusing on this area might be a desirable thing. The major drawback for Sheep Drive Trail is that it is on BLM land, and in order for us to do any development, we have to do the final steps of the archaeological study. So the archaeological test was done long ago, whenever after our master plan was started. They were able to identify the archaeological sites, but the final, coming out and doing a full cultural and environmental study has not been done. And part of that is because at the time, whenever it was quoted, it was about $180,000. And in those days, that was a lot of money. It's still a whole lot of money now. So part of our meeting with BLM, we are also meeting with their archaeologist, who has been the same person since the beginning of time. And so very familiar with our area. She came out again recently and drove the area with Kelly Martin, our park ranger supervisor, who's very familiar with the area and the sites. J.C. Kleiner in our GIS department. He heads up our GIS department. He's actually a archaeologist, and that's what he did before he got into what he's doing now, so he went along as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the real costs are. And would they be willing to let us do this north part only, and only develop the north part and do the other side later? You know, is there a way to split it up? Do you have to do the entire archaeological survey before you do any development? Could you do it way far in this far northwest end because it's so far away from any of the archaeological sites? So those are the things that they're basically saying we do have to do it, but that we'll be meeting about and trying to find out a little bit more information. So
Development deal, I've got a copy of it that Jeff Bell gave me. And as I remember, most of those archaeological sites are on the power line at the east, which is also the old road from Goldfield Ghost Town going down to Florence.
So there's some things up here in this corner, and then there's another big site. Let's see where is Broadway? It's not really Broadway, but if I can find Broadway. So there's Superstition. Oh my gosh, it's way down there. Oh yeah, that's why. So around the school area, there's another site down on this end. So yes, it's mostly on this end, and that's why I was saying if there was a way that we could start development just to get some things started.
Could split
Right.
the issue,
Right.
the junction up there at Highway 88, that would be a perfect deal there.
So that's what we will be discussing with them. They've come out and done the initial thing, which is just coming and driving it to refresh their mind of what it's like and then help us determine what we could do. So that is a big hurdle to any grants. There are some MAG grants that we were looking at, and many of those grants, you get them and you have 2 to 3 years to do the project with the money. That would be enough time. You could factor in the cost of those kinds of things into the grant, and those are things that can be done. So we are also looking at grant money for those types of things, the cultural study. So that's one area and I would just call this all one big thing. It's probably our most already planned out. It doesn't have construction drawings or anything like that, but it does have a plan for what it should look like. So any questions on that area or any other thoughts before I move on?
Liz, did everybody, as they've come on the board, gotten that project?
The master plan of that?
Of that area?
If it is, it's in your guys' book. I think all the master plans are in your guys' binder. So you can look really quickly and see. If it's in your binder, then
I know I've got mine at my house.
you guys, can somebody look really quickly and I'll tell you. I don't have my binder or that.
Multi-use master plan.
Yep, right there.
That's it.
So that should be in everybody's book if you have more, want to look at it a little bit more. And it actually identifies where the archaeological sites are more specifically than my stuff. And it might not be you might have taken it out. You might have it someplace else, but I figured somebody had it in there. So whatever's in that binder has been given to everybody that is on the group now. So that's one location. The other location that's kind of newer that is part of our active transportation plan is the CAP trail. So Pinal County has done an entire master plan on the Central Arizona Project canal system and how that, and then connectivity to that as well as the rest of their trail system. So they spend a lot of effort on that. Wayne, were you on their committee for that one or for the regional park? Okay, Peralta's regional park. So Nick Blake was on the CAP trail one then. And every community, basically, they assigned whatever was in your community, you will be responsible for building. So Pinal County's not going to build it, the city would be responsible for it. And we were all, on board. Pinal County would do everything that is in the unincorporated areas. They've actually started on several areas. It starts down in Pinnacle, I think that's the right place. The farthest south end,
The farthest south side of the
Mm-hmm.
county.
and then
opening it up.
it all connects, and then it will eventually, hopefully, connect with the rest of the CAP canal if Maricopa continues to do their portion. So our portion of the CAP trail down here in the south part of the city, oh darn, the whole thing isn't in here. It continues, so here's where it is, so our city limits, let's see, where am I at here?
Isn't the city limits a baseline right now?
No, nope. The city limits are at Elliott right now, but, okay, yes. So this is Meridian right here, this far end. And then the CAP trail comes right, or the CAP canal comes in right here. And so the Pinal County did all the work to get all of the drawings, all of the detail on how the canal would look in each area. And everybody contributed to that and approved it. So there's a lot of areas where it either runs adjacent to the canal, or if there are things that pass, for example, Ironwood, where it gets to be a lot of traffic, there's an underpass or an overpass in different areas. It talks about what we would do to develop those areas. So it can be very costly. Our section, I believe, is about 7, almost 9, it might be 7 to 9 miles that is in our current city limits. We go to Elliott Road. We went to Elliott Road, and now that the state has allowed us to annex that farther area, we now go to Fry. Well, what is considered Fry. Right, so Fry Road is like our alignment. There's no Fry Road out there, I don't think, on this side, but it's the alignment for what is Fry in the rest of the going west. So this CAP trail, it's highly desirable because it is already has a lot of cleared area. There's already a lot of environmental stuff that has been done for it. It is costly in some areas just to make it work out, but it's a really desirable place for people to walk, bike, hike. It's very popular in Gilbert and in other areas that have developed their part of that. And as we see the growth of the developments that are going to be coming from the west that are going to move this way, the whole Eastmark idea and all of that stuff that's there, those are some of the conversations that are starting to be heard. And this is the area that will develop, and a trail system over here is also, super desirable and important. We feel like this is where the city's growing. There's a lot of great opportunities with that. There is a lot of grant money because it's associated with being nearby to the canal, and there's a lot of other amenities that can help it, can help to make it a more desirable site. There's also a lot of areas that are up on a dike, so you have great views. It's not down in the desert. There's just a lot of neat things about that area. So that was another area that was identified as an area that we want to, over time, to be developing. And it is part of the master plan for Pinal County. So that's the second area. The third area is much smaller. So in the downtown area, and so I'd like to look at it as we have something on the north end and truly here on the east end as well, something on the south end, and then in the middle, we have some of the downtown trails and other pathways. So remember down here in Renaissance Point in Arroyo Verde, here where my mouse is, we have our little trail that runs along those washes. That is city property. We do about a monthly event, a monthly running event right now that goes through that area. It's very small. It doesn't disturb the neighbors in a major way. We haven't had any complaints. But we really are trying to get people used to knowing that there's a nice small trail system and they're shaded and desirable, especially for the people who live in this area. That connecting up truly through roads and through sidewalks and bike trails and things like that, as well as our Phelps Drive right here, and then connecting back to the park is really desirable to us, to have things that people are connected to in the downtown where they can walk or walk their dogs or have recreational opportunities. Additionally, there are some other identified trails. This green line, the green line out past over here, let's see, here's City Hall in this area. There are identified areas that get us into the state trust lands trail system that will go into other future areas. So one of the things that the TAC team was talking about is that it would be nice to have something down in here that could serve multiple purposes. So having trailheads that connect us to some of the trail systems to get out to, but also adding parking. So if there were ways to find small areas of parking for those trail systems, then we would also have parking for some of our amenities in the downtown area as we go. So having kind of a dual purpose of having areas where you can get involved and get out into either walking, hiking, equestrian paths, so having things so that it's more accessible for equestrians as they get down into this area. Wayne, you didn't go with them on did you go with them on their ride whenever the active transportation plan group? Okay, it was probably Chip and a few others. But they kind of, so they went on some of the different, they rode around in the downtown as well as other areas and kind of identified areas that were desirable for folks to be utilizing. And so that's another big area. There are certain types of monies that are available for downtown development and incorporating trail systems and things like that isn't available for other sites. And so we definitely want to, be looking for those. Yes.
You do have, scroll down just a little for Prospector.
Oh, for Prospector?
Yeah, up there on the south side of this sheep drive where the power lines are, there's an area that's been set aside for loading and unloading horses.
At Prospector Park.
At Prospector.
So yes, so just north of the soccer fields at Prospector Park. Many of you that went and looked at the dog park is kind of in that area too, but the staging area. So that is identified. Mm-hmm. So that is identified as one of the trailheads for the future, and that would be a great place to do something like that. Again, we can't do anything though until we take care of the archaeological stuff. So even that.
The land over, was it a county park at one time?
Mm-hmm.
What about?
So it's really grainy but I can at least show you where we're at. Okay, then it doesn't let me move it.
Right.
So right here, so this is City Hall. Here's Flatiron, and then this is the county. So right here is the county complex. The county owns this entire thing here. So if this is South Route 88 coming through here, sorry, you hardly can see it. North Apache Trail, and then it turns into South Route 88. The county park that was dedicated to that if the city was going to build a park or whatever, that would be there. Boys and Girls Club had some, is dedicated to a future Boys and Girls Club if they ever raised the amount of money to build something like that. All of that is in this triangle right here. So again, so this is South Route 88, and correct, on the south side of, kind of.
Behind Fry's.
Yes.
In that area.
So again, if this is the county complex, then on the other side of the road from the county complex is a big desert land. It was called a park before. I think it probably had some ramadas and it had some picnic tables and things 30 years ago. But it was vacated by the county, and now it really just see the slabs and they're covered in desert vegetation. They do not have current plans to revitalize that park. We don't either, but it would be a great place for a staging area, for parking, for things like of that nature that are used for the rest of this downtown area. Making it something more inviting for people to come and visit with trees and a more passive area is very desirable. A place where people can park and then get out onto some of these other trails, that's another good idea. And it is very good for downtown development to have something. So it can never be, it's another recreation and public purpose lease. The county owns this whole square, and it's on a BLM lease. Their buildings all fall under the rec and public purpose, so they're county public buildings. Our dog park that's going to be there falls into the rec and public purpose. And if this were ever a passive park or a parking lot that gets onto trails, all of that would fall into their current, and I'm sorry, they don't have a lease, they have a patent. So it can't be changed. We can't do commercial development here. We looked into that, as a development team. They looked into that extensively because there is some really good property there. But it can never be used for that, so.
That gives a way for people who live out in the more rural area, if they want to ride or bicycle in,
Right,
they're
Good.
down to that spot there and they can go do their business at the
Yeah.
government.
Yep.
Or just a block south, they're
Right.
at Fry's.
right.
There's a
Which has
fair,
a number
there's a fair amount of homos camping in there.
right now.
That wouldn't be happening if it were developed.
Right,
and looked-
that
had
seems to
something
be
else there.
some
Yeah.
very
Mhm.
key located land to be allowed to just be vacant
Right.
for the local.
Well, and there's a little bit of there's some washes that run through there that you would have to plan for, but again, it could be a very passive and desirable spot for just green space, and if it was a little bit maintained a little bit differently. And I'll just be honest, we need more parking in the downtown area for events and for other activities that are going on, and so having dual purpose areas where it can be parking during the day for people to get out, whether it's to bring a trailer and then to do riding out in some of these other areas, or to continue biking in this area and have a place to stage. All of those are great things. And then the occasional times for events that we need more parking, it'd be great to be able to have areas that the city has more ownership of or has the ability to do. Yes, the area across the street, it's up for sale again. The part where we have most of our parking, that landowner is more aggressively looking at, doing something with it. And we'll certainly continue to have conversations with them of how we can be a part of that. And that might be something the city is desirable for, but it could go away. And we've been trying to really make sure that everybody understands that. We've known forever that do not have parking down here for events. And people can park in the downtown area, but we will be looking at some of these properties that the city will have to make a decision on. Do we purchase some of that so that we have room? Working on do we do development agreements with groups to have joint parking that businesses as well as the city can use? So there's a lot of, different things that we're looking at. But for our purposes, those are kind of like the three key areas in the community. And then just as a reminder, in the active transportation plan, it talks about it somewhere else in the whole 252 pages. But remember that this whole thing is a loop. So the Legends loop, and it, would follow our current multi-use trail system. And then in here, as development happened, it would come up these washes. And I wish it was all in here right now. There's another page that has it, but it pretty much connects up through here, and it would connect back up through the CAP trail. So everything that we're talking about doing still fits in with the active transportation plan.
Loop planned from over there at the Old West and the power line. It's going to come down below baseline and then come back up at Meridian.
So, yep, as part of the active transportation plan, they called this Legends Loop in the plan, and I think Larry presented on that. You can't see it on this. This is our existing stuff, but on the future plans, actually, you know what? Sorry, I don't know if that's a good one. No. Let me see if I can find it really fast for you. I might have just gone the wrong way. Yeah. So, it's not that. There's another map in there that has a big pink line that goes, here we go. Maybe it'll come up here. So this is very busy. I was trying to see if I found the simpler one. This one is the pedestrian map, trails map. Okay. So, I don't know where it is showing just Legends Loop. But down in here, I'm going to pick this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. So it connects with our existing trail system. It will come down one of the major washes here, and then it connects up with the CAP. So it's not the entire CAP trail, but it connects into it. And then, Yep, then comes back around up here. And this isn't a trail, it's part of the multi-use trails, multi-path areas that are identified in the plan up Meridian, and then it connects back up again. So that kind of, so all the things that we're talking about are things that are part of, if you look in here, again, here's Flatiron is down here. All of the entries into the other trail systems, that's what all these little green marks are. Horse crossovers, as well as entrances into other trails. So that downtown area is part of our active transportation plan. All three of those things that I'm talking about are part of this. And we really want to be asking for money. And it just depends on what their priorities are. So if their priority is things that are for the downtown, then that's going to be the one that we go to. But I just want to hear your guys' thoughts in general, that if there were no priorities on a trail, what do you guys think are some of the things we should be looking for our community?
I have a question. We got 5 islands south of Highway 60 that don't belong to the Apache Junction. There's no time they get those islands back right there. No, don't go to one. See right there? Those are 5 islands that are not part of the Apache Junction.
So like, you mean the county islands?
Yes.
That are just unincorporated? So that's what a lot of the annexation conversation was. So I think is if so in order to annex, those community members have to be willing. And I know that the city has started a campaign for looking at all of that. So I don't know anything else about that.
At the wrong line. For instance, they have to come out on Tomahawk.
Right.
It belongs to the city.
So-
You can pay, you can make a fee to
Yeah.
drive on Tomahawk.
So let me just say
Not
this
gonna
really
force them
quickly.
to win.
Right, so we can't talk about that issue because it's not part of our agenda. We don't have control over that, unfortunately. So, good point, but I certainly can't address it, other than to say that there are plans for looking at annexation.
So, in my opinion, I would like to see the canal project prioritized, just because if you prioritize something like that, it hopefully spurns further development, which gives you more money to be able to have more leverage, to be able to do the other projects like the trailheads up north and those more archaeological studies, because as those new corridors in Mesa and stuff are built literally right across the street from where we're talking about, will spurn just crazy growth this way if we can capitalize on it. So from a future development point of view, I would rather push on the canal project, because that would make it more appealing to developers and investors to come into that area, which then increases the city parks budget, which increases our ability to do more and more and more. So
I would add into that I biked on the other canal paths, and it's a great way to travel quickly between communities, and there is that advantage to it.
yeah,
I think it does eliminate the need for the archaeological study, which is another bunch of money that would be gone, and it does tie into the rest of the community much more.
Could you check with Kent Taylor and see if they've already looked at that issue of archaeological?
So that is part of their study. So they did a lot of the early environmental stuff. We'd have to do the NEPA just like anybody would. It's not the same as, so the problem with our other studies is that we have known archaeological sites that require mitigation, but none of these, so there have not been any, there's none that are identified in our section. So all, of the CAP trail.
Okay.
and I know growing up, I was actually very close to one of the CAP trails that was developed, and it was developed even, there were 3 different areas for horses to walk on, bikes, and then pedestrians as well, and it was heavily utilized in all areas, and so it was a nice feature to have growing up and for the community right there, so.
I think that this one does, so in looking at, they have cut through, the elevation plan for the trail system in different areas, and that is definitely a concept, is having it be multi-use and designed so that way you could be big enough for all of that.
And if you prioritize that, then as it does develop, because sooner or later it will develop down there, then you can lay claim to it. Because there's also areas running through Mesa and Phoenix that are very tight on that
Right,
canal, and it
right.
gets very uncomfortable. And so you could prioritize and stake your claim on that before it gets, built. The walls are built right up to it. And I realize the county's probably already done that, but it puts an extra emphasis on
right.
what we want the community to grow into.
And, even though the county did the plan, so the city would still have to work with, so that all is gonna, so while it's city property, they'll have a say in what gets, to some degree, if it's zoned for it, what gets developed and all of that, but they, approve the plan once it comes in. So the developers would be highly encouraged, and that's the importance of an active transportation plan and all the plans that we have in place, is to say, this is what's on the map, you need to use this in your scheme. So as you look at your green spaces within your development, you need to be making room for this trail. You need to make room for access to this trail from your development. So that's definitely, that is another benefit that I think that they've talked about over time, is just that because it's new and pristine, there's nothing developed there yet, you have a little bit more control, and you're not having to, other than the elements themselves, you're not having to redo roads or do other things. So that's certainly another thing that is good about it. Other thoughts?
Any other thoughts?
No.
Luciano? Is there any development along the Cap Canal currently? I guess to the northwest, it's,
You mean in the city limits?
no,
Beyond
in
that.
Mesa.
In Mesa, so there are different, it's chunked out. So there are some areas where you can't access it at all, but then there are other areas where it's, definitely it's fenced, and then you can be on the other side of it. I don't know, according to this map, I know so some of the areas as you get farther into Mesa, so I keep saying Gilbert, that's a different area. Gilbert has done a lot with theirs,
Yeah.
but that's not the same section here.
Okay.
Mesa has certain areas, I'd have to look to see which ones connect fully, but I know that's part of the Maricopa County's active transportation plan, is to find ways to incorporate a comprehensive, breaking full trail. In our area, because there's already a service road along the canal, there's already fencing, a lot of the changes are really more about adding fencing or moving fencing, so that way you can have the area for pedestrians, and adding in trees and other things that make it more desirable. That's what a good portion in the higher developed areas in our city limits.
Okay. I don't know.
So that'd be an important thing for us to look at and see.
Yeah, what are the plans for Mesa connecting up? Because potentially we could just be building a 7 to 9 mile strip of trail that doesn't go anywhere, right?
So Florence has in their plans to be starting their portion already. They obviously don't go, all the way, but they'll go another section. And Pinal County's goal is that as they look to see who's doing theirs, they want to make connections. So we are the farthest, we are the end on one side, and they already started the other side with that community. And so they really want to connect, and the faster that they can connect, the happier they are. So I think making some of those connections, so while we might not go towards Mesa, I think we will. Just because Eastmark and all those things are right there, well, not really there. It's a little farther on down. But as they go, they're going to connect. And then maybe we don't connect there right away, but if we were able to connect, and it's a much more scenic area between us and Florence, than in the inner city, so that still might be really desirable. But I think those are important questions and important things for us to look at and see how they do connect, and make sure that we match up, that we match
Right.
connecting.
Now, further up north, up at the top of that. So you're saying that trail will come up from, say, the Cap and up toward, up Meridian? Is that?
Yeah, so it's just, so Meridian is identified as if you look at our map, it is a shared youth path with, I think this says side trail or something like that. So where you see pink as it develops, the plan is that adjacent to the road, you know, you'd have a little buffer, you'd have sidewalk, and you might have another buffer if it's a shared use path. If we want to have connectivity, and you would have to go look at the other map to see, so we're gonna have pedestrians there, we have the trail. There's a bike lane on that area. Let's see if the equestrian map is next. Isn't there? The equestrian map is part of this. That might just be what shared use is in the downtown area. Yeah, so depending on what kind it is, so here's the pinks. Depending on which size of a map, when they talk about shared use paths, they might look something like one of these two areas. And so, again, they are riding by, Meridian is a busy road, but having wherever the road is over here, there's a buffer, and then a sidewalk, and then a path for horses, and then this. And so they've put that throughout there. There's areas where it's easier to do that than others, and so just looking to see how that works. So yeah, that would be the ultimate goal down the road. So obviously it's sooner rather than later, probably for bicyclists, sooner rather than later for people who are walking on a sidewalk, we'll be able to manage to do the whole loop. But, you know, this is like the 20, 30-year plan. It's certainly something for the future. Other thoughts? This isn't the end of the, you know, I mean, you don't have to have, we have all of our ideas now, but I want you to start thinking about it, and we'll certainly be bringing back other information. Everybody has a different opinion. Our economic development people, they want it to be in downtown. They want to find a way to keep attracting people so that our downtown doesn't die, no matter what happens south of us or north of us. Our equestrian community, I think, probably is more interested in seeing some things in this area. But to get everybody else healthy and walking and out and about, you know, that might be more interested in here. So I think there's a lot of reasons for all of them. And like I said, certain grants appeal to certain things. And so I think one of the things I want to know from you is, do you feel like these are our three priorities at least, that these are at least the top three? And then as we sort of flesh out, you know, what are, you know, I have some great notes on where some of those things fall.
Well, I think the staff has put a fair amount of time and effort into coming up with these priorities, and I really hesitate to second guess them. I think they're good priorities. I think they strike at the heart of what our trail system needs. I think we're well on the right path.
And it's okay if you add extra. So it just might be that we focused on a few. So don't feel like, I think that's a great, fair point. But if there was something else that, you know, popped out at you that maybe we hadn't thought about, we definitely want you to share that.
These three areas could be considered like a stage one.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Stage 1, 2, 3, 4. These are like, yes, you're right. You're right. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Jesse, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I guess the sheep north, the trail to the north, really it already exists. What you're talking about is more development on it.
Right.
So from that perspective, I would say one of the other two would be a priority, since that one's already there.
You're looking at the downtown and that
Downtown and the canal,
CAP.
right. You know, I understand that what you're talking about is spending some money on that northern loop and improving
Yeah.
it significantly.
Yeah.
But it does already exist and people are
Right.
using it.
And I think we heard that a lot from our equestrian community. You know, they're interested in the whole area. We've put a lot of time and effort, and still do, on a lot of the horse gates and entries for all of those. There are some areas that could use improvement that maybe aren't major investments, and we continue to look at those things. A lot of them said that they fear it being developed anymore because they don't want to attract bikes and a lot of other things. Well, we can't have any motorized anything on it, but bikes themselves are a little bit concerning.
You almost need a separate mountain bike kind of trail.
So I think that
Well,
it's probably big enough to have a lot of that, and it is very minimal interaction, but it's still a fear. It's certainly a reasonable thought. Again, that's an area that could attract a lot of people to the area. So I think there is a little bit of fear. Like you said, there's existing trails, and so they have pretty much, what they need. And trailheads, they can be costly, but they might not be as. And so again, as we look to see where there's, some grants are specifically for certain things, and so that will help us down the road. But
But you do have to have the multi-trail use concept in mind for many grants.
Yep.
As you go for them.
Absolutely. And I think most all of these do. The CEP as well as this one both are use trail designs, and so that's really good. I think that's a good concept, and I think the things I'm hearing are very similar to the conversations that staff and our TAC team had, and where some of their priorities. Is there anybody else that wants to weigh in at this point, or I think I've kind of...
Anybody else? No?
Okay. All right.
She's just taking notes down there.
Okay. She's a great note taker. All right. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, we have finished down to, now we've got, that's part of this grants program we've been discussing. You have anything else on that, Liz?
Nope, I'm finished.
Okay. Now we go to elections of officers for the next year. All right, now we're ready to start this. I'll open for nominations for 2020 chair. At this time, I would like to open for the open.
Are you doing vice chair? I think you're doing vice chair.
Oh, you want vice chair first?
Is that what's first in your packet?
Well, I looked out and I'm going, 1, 2. Okay, we're doing vice chair first. Open for nominations for vice chair. Can I have a nomination, please?
Honorable Chairperson, I would like to nominate Heather Muller for Parks and Recreation Commission Vice Chairperson 2020.
Okay. We have a nomination of Heather Muller. Now, do I have another, I have to ask this 3 times, guys. Would anyone else like to make a nomination for Parks and Recs Commission Vice Chairperson for 2020?
I would like to nominate Jesse again.
Okay, so you've got that noted, Mary? First Heather and now Jesse? Okay. So now for the 3rd time, do I have any other nominations for Parks and Rec Commission Vice Chairperson for 2020? This is the last call. Do I have any more nominations? Okay, with not receiving any other nominations than Jesse and Heather, I'll close the nominations for vice chair at this time. May we proceed with a roll call vote, Mary?
Okay, for the nomination of Heather Muller for vice chair, I will do a roll call vote, starting with Luciana Boozin. Aye or nay?
Who's the one?
Me. For Heather Muller.
Heather Muller as vice chair.
No.
Frank?
Yes.
Schoenbeck? Wayne Standage?
I'll go with no.
Jesse Gage?
Yes.
He went off.
Walter Baldwin?
I'm just talking about.
Yes.
Judy Boyd?
Yes.
Okay, Heather Muller is our vice chair.
Woo.
Four.
Congratulations.
I didn't think you'd be too torn up with that.
Jesse wants to add another retirement to it. Okay, that does it for the vice chair. Now, I'm opening nominations for the 2020 chair for Parks and Recreation Commission. Can we have a nominee, please?
I would like to nominate Jesse Gage.
Okay, Jesse. Okay, the next has been nominated. Okay, that's the first call. Second call now is for, who else would like to be nominated for Parks and Rec Commission chairperson for 2020?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Wayne Standage.
Okay, that makes that one. This is the last call for nomination of Parks and Recreation Commission chairperson for 2020. Do I have any other names? Receiving none other, we will close the nominations for 2020 chair at that. And Mary, can you proceed with a roll call vote?
Okay, for chairman, we're looking at Jesse Gage. Walker Waldry, how do you vote?
No.
Judy Bory, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather Muller, how do you vote?
No.
Luciana Boozin, how do you vote? Frank Shanebeck, how do you
Yes.
vote? Wayne Standage, how do you vote?
This is for Jesse, right?
Hmm?
I'll go with no. I vote for myself.
Okay. And, well, we don't, Jesse, how do you vote?
No.
For yourself? No? Okay. Jesse is
Thank you,
not our chairman. So now we're gonna take a vote for Wayne Standage. Walker Waldy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Judy Bory, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather Muller, how do you vote?
Yes.
Luciana Boozin, how do you
Yes.
vote? Frank?
Yes.
Shanebeck, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wayne Standage, how do you vote?
Yes.
I just thought we ought to
Jesse
move.
Gage, how do you
Yes.
vote? Well, Wayne Standage is our chairman unanimously.
Oh, nobody else wants it, huh?
I just thought we ought to move around
Jesse
a
would
little bit.
be against it.
Well, we got Heather as vice chair.
Okay, Wayne, you're the newly elected chairman, you get to finish this meeting.
Okay, folks,
Gotta-
let me turn the page for this.
Yes.
Okay.
I tried to get
so our
someone to come
new
today. Didn't work.
Chairman, repeat chairman is myself,
Mhm,
and the new vice chair is Heather.
mhm.
Okay, so we all know where we all stand now.
The pressure's on.
Yeah, okay, now, for call to the public, we do not have any, so we'll pass by that. Number 10, requests for future agenda items. Do you guys have anything for Liz to look next time?
Yeah, I've had a couple of questions from folks using the multi-gen center. And I was wondering if you could just report out to us on how the, the procedure or policy on how the temperature's set over there. They're complaining about it's too hot at some point, and
It's too cold, it's too hot, there's a lot of, we are challenged. I'm happy to bring somebody back to talk about that.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
I didn't know we were dealing with challenge. Okay, are there any other future agenda items? Heather, no?
No.
Luciano? No. Okay, Frank?
No thanks. Nope.
Jesse?
No.
You've already done yours.
I've done mine, yeah.
Nope.
No? Judy?
Maybe continuation of dog park and where we're at.
Okay, before I go to our adjournment issue, Liz, I happen to have to go over to the county recorder's office, and so I walked over and took a look after that hard storm, and it had drained pretty good at that point, a day or 2 days after. So I just thought I'd give you a.
Yeah.
Still a lake.
For an update, and it was looking okay.
Okay.
which means there's gonna be a slight loss of use for a day or two after a storm, and then it's
We'll
working,
see.
working
Bring
pretty
that back.
good.
It'll be an agenda item.
Okay, at this point, I will adjourn our meeting at 7:31, but excuse me, 7:29.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gotta get the official time, right, Mary?
Right.